It's time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Indeed it does, and good to have you with us on this Tuesday edition of the show. A lot to talk about. We'll do some baseball a little later on. It's that time of the year in Yankee land, and Shohei Ohtani made his return to the mound on Monday night. We'll talk about it. I also got some more things I want to say about this Rafael Devers deal with him going to San Francisco. Big news on the PGA Tour. They have a new commissioner coming in, and I think it's a fantastic move by the Tour. I will explain why. History made at the College Baseball World Series, all that in odds and ends, plus Dennis Bernstein coming up in 10 minutes to talk about the Stanley Cup playoff with Game 6 on Tuesday night as well. Sam Yarnell enters the fray as we get things started on this Tuesday, Sam. And look, the Thunder are one win away from an NBA title after beating the Pacers last night, 120-109. And let me just say this on the Tyrese Haliburton stuff, because a lot of people are getting on him, or then there are some notable people, we'll just say, that are getting on Tyrese Haliburton for not scoring a field goal in this game. And he was contributing in other ways, but obviously he struggled and was dealing with an injury that was aggravated early on in this game. But I got to tell you something. I look at the situation for him last night, and people are saying, well, they should sit him. I hear Stephen A. Smith at halftime. Well, they should sit him. He's in a no-win situation. Because if he opts out of that game at halftime, struggling the way he was, if he sits out that second half, he's getting crushed today by the very same people that are saying, oh, he should sit if he's hurt. He shouldn't be playing if he's hurt. So he's in a no-win situation. Tyrese Haliburton can't win, especially when these are the same people to begin with who think the guy isn't a superstar as it is. Despite everything he's done, despite his resume, what he's done throughout the season, the big shots he's hit, there are still people that would say he's not a superstar. Those same people would be crushing him if he said, yeah, I'm too hurt, I can't play. So Tyrese Haliburton is in a no-win situation in this spot. Here's what all this boils down to for me, Sam. The Thunder are just a better basketball team. And the saving grace for the Indiana Pacers, and this is a credit to Rick Carlisle, is this. They play hard for 48 minutes. In a time where teams take their foot off the gas pedal, where they don't play hard, where teams take nights off, the one thing about this Pacers team in this postseason is they have been all in. They have been 100% committed. And when they play at their very hardest, if the Thunder pull back just a little bit, that's where the Pacers get their edge. And they get this game down to 2. I mean, this is a 2-point game in the fourth quarter. Forget what the final score says. Right. This is a 2-point game in the fourth quarter, Sam, right, before the Thunder eventually pull away. And they're doing that on talent. Jalen Williams, what a performance. 40 points. A terrific effort from him. There's not much more you could say about that. A budding superstar, 14 of 25. He only had 1 turnover. I mean, just fantastic stuff from Jalen Williams on a night where the Thunder moved to within 1 win of an NBA title, Sam.
Yeah, on the Tyrese Haliburton thing, you're right, Jason. I mean, it is kind of it's a no-win situation for the guy just because, I also think that we're in a spot where we should be comparing him to other superstars in the league. I think he's kind of established himself at that level. And I don't think a lot of other superstars would have even gotten to the point that he got to in that game, put themselves in the position to go 0 from the field, right? 4 points and not a single field goal. So, I do think that there's a lot of respect that's not being given to Tyrese Haliburton in that regard. It's the NBA Finals. You're asking him to not play in the game. While I think there are a lot of superstars that would do that, I can confidently say that Tyrese Haliburton is not one of them. And it seems like no one wants to give him the credit or respect that is due for that. On the series side, I'm still not done believing in the Indiana Pacers.
I'm not either.
in Oklahoma City, doing exactly what we are accustomed to seeing them doing in this playoffs, walking a team straight down. I mean, they were down 11 points or 9 points or whatever at the end of the first quarter. Like, this game was not particularly close until it was close when it needed to be. Luckily, the Thunder, like you said, on talent alone, seemingly pulled this one right out of the teeth of the monster, and you need a 40-point performance out of J-Dub, who I'll get to in a second, to merely win this game, somewhat comfortably. They barely covered the 9.5. So yeah, I'm still not completely sold on the Thunder just walking their way to the end of this series, especially because, talked about it all week long, Jason. This is the first time since early March, that the Pacers have lost back-to-back games. Do I think they'll lose back-to-back-to-back games now? No. J-Dub now is going to be one of these dynamic duos with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the league, and it really does open the conversation to, if these Thunder win the NBA Finals, are they going to be the worst version of the Thunder that we see win an NBA Finals during this dynasty?
It's a very good point you bring up, that this might be the low side in terms of potential for this Thunder team. And who knows? The thing about Oklahoma City, though, is they've always had a difficult time attracting free agents because it's Oklahoma City. It's not a desirable market if you're a free agent. I wonder if that changes in this offseason, if they do go on to win this series and win this title. If all of a sudden guys are saying, I want to go play with Shai, I want to go play with Jalen Williams, I want to play for Mark Dagnall. That's what I'm curious to see.
Not even just that, Jason. Like, do you see how much fun that team has? Yeah. Like, in the post-game interviews, you can just, how they're always all doing them together. You can just tell that that's just a group of guys, not very atypical from a normal NBA team, right? More like an MLB team in certain ways, in that camaraderie around each other. Guys in the league are going to want to be part of that real bad.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. And it's one of the things I've always said was a struggle for Oklahoma City was it's Oklahoma City. And I don't mean that in an offensive way. It doesn't stack up to Miami or New York or LA or even Dallas for that matter. The Thunder, by the way, minus 1,600 to win the series. The Pacers plus 900 if you're looking for value, obviously. You know where to find it right now.
I will just say there's also a level of people not wanting to go to play in Oklahoma City because of the pressure. As you stated, Jason, the Thunder are the only thing to do in Oklahoma City. Only thing to talk about.
Give me the Pacers plus 5 in Game 6. I think this thing's going 7. I have felt that way, since basically the end of, Game 3. So, wouldn't shock me. All right, we're coming back. Some hockey to get to. Dennis Bernstein joins us next. Thanks for being with us on this Tuesday. We've talked about the NBA Finals. Now let's focus on the Stanley Cup Final. Game 6 on Tuesday night. Back in Florida with the Panthers trying to wrap things up. A 3-2 series lead. Going for back-to-back Stanley Cups. Let's bring in our friend Dennis Bernstein. Does a great job at thefourthperiod.com, SiriusXM, NHL Radio, and he joins us on the show. What would it, if the Oilers lose this thing back-to-back years, where do you turn at? Because I'm sure you're going to be busy and traveling and all that stuff tomorrow, so I didn't want to be able to count on having you tomorrow. I wanted to get your thoughts if this thing does end tonight, as Vegas thinks it's going to.
Okay, so
where do you turn as an organization if back-to-back years you find yourself in this position and come up short?
Well, Stan Bowman and Jeff Jackson, they've only been in place 1 year, Jason. So what does it prove? It proves a couple of things. That the top-heavy teams don't win. Right? There's more depth on the Florida Panthers. They score more goals. Here's the thing, job one. And this is unprecedented. And hockey's been played a long time. And it's competed for the Stanley Cup a very long time. Game 6, elimination game, and you don't know who your goalie is. You have to have a goalie you can trust. In the offseason, that's job one for Stan Bowman. Now, a couple other jobs to do, right? You got to keep Connor McDavid happy. He's 1 year away from signing an extension. The depth that they got was good enough for 3 rounds. It may not be good enough to win a championship. So Corey Perry's been great, but he's 40 years old. Trent Frederick they traded for hasn't done anything. Adam Henrique's supposed to be their shutdown center. He's been invisible all final. They would have to flip the script on the type of players, the supplemental players that they think can win a Stanley Cup, Jason. That would be the next step here if they do come up short for a second consecutive season.
Dennis, it is a remarkable thing just hearing you talk about the goalie situation, though. Because outside of quarterback in the NFL,
yes,
I don't think there is as important a singular position in all of sports. You could tell me if I'm wrong. I don't think there is as important a position, especially come playoff time, in all of sports that can literally lift you or sink you in the postseason the way a goalie can. Yeah. It's almost unforgivable in that regard that we don't that to have a situation like the Oilers have right now.
Well, they thought they had the guy in Stuart Skinner. Remember, he took them 1 win away from a Cup final. He lost that game 7-2-1, and he imploded a couple of times, and the coach lost faith in him. So it's unprecedented, Jason. It really, like, there's been other times. I think back in Pittsburgh, 2008, 2009, maybe they went back and forth with the goaltenders. But how much of an advantage is it for Paul Maurice to looking back at his net and say, okay, Bob, go win us the game. Go win us a Stanley Cup. It is unprecedented, and it's something that they could have addressed the Oilers at the trade deadline. They chose not to. And now they have a situation where, look, and the other thing, I don't want to throw the goalies totally under the bus, Jason, because the defense in front of them, like, look, Matthias Ekholm, I give all these examples. He's clearly the best defenseman when he's healthy. But in Game 4, they were trying to protect the 1-goal lead. Ekholm went off the ice with 2:14 left. Didn't get back on the ice till 20 seconds were left, and Reinhart scored. He's hurt. Like, the best defenseman's hurt. Pickard, and they want to make Pickard here. He was 7-0. The 2 goals that Brad Marchand scored, and Brad is putting on an incredible Cup final here for the Florida Panthers. They're stoppable shots. You get to this point, and you can't trust your goaltender. That's the deficiency in this team right now.
What could the rest of the league learn? You talk about the depth, obviously, of this Panthers team. What can other teams, because we live in a copycat, all these leagues are copycat leagues. What could teams learn from what Florida has done to sort of to flip this away from Edmonton for a second?
Well, you always got to have talent, Jason, because Barkov's a great player. Sam Reinhart scored 52 goals seasons ago. He's starting to warm up. His stick's starting to warm up. Jason, you have to be aggressive. And you have to be physical. It's as simple as that. It's cliche. Oh, you fight for feet in the regular season. You fight for inches in the playoffs. It's true. Look at the aggressiveness of the Florida Panthers. Look at their forecheck. Look at the inability of the Edmonton Oilers to get out of their own zone, except for Connor McDavid. Like, it works. And look at the physicality. Sam Bennett might win the Conn Smythe, and he also knocked out 2 goaltenders. So how valuable has he been in the playoffs? So I think that if you're going to copy this team, it's don't be passive, don't sit back and play that defensive, a passive style. Be aggressive on the forecheck, have some physicality in your middle and bottom 6, and that's a path to playoff success.
How does this play out tonight for you? I mean, again, not knowing who the goalie is as we sit here and have this conversation. First of all, who do you think they wind up starting? How close to game time will they reveal that? Do you think, they do it right before puck drop? Do they do it? Are we going to find out when they go on the ice and see who goes into the net, during pregame warmups? Like, how does this all play out?
Well, I don't think it's going to happen in the AM skate and the availability from Chris Knoblauch. So I think he'll hold that. How do I think it's going to work out? Look, I have no problem with the progression of the goaltending because in Game 5, you had a chance to win. Pickard was hot. He was undefeated. If he loses that game, you fall back to Stuart Skinner because he's truly your better goaltender for the elimination game. I would play Skinner, right? Because I don't think that Pickard had a great game. I look at those goals, the 2 Marchand goals, didn't do it. So I think that, Skinner goes back in net. But I'll say this, Jason. Every time I've written off the Oilers in the playoffs, they've won. They have 8 comeback victories. Am I going to be shocked if I go home to Los Angeles tomorrow to get on a plane to Edmonton on Thursday? Absolutely not. And Jason, I think that's how it goes.
Wow, you think we're getting a Game 7, huh?
Yeah, the script is already written. Back-to-back 7s. Sure, this time in Edmonton's Park. I can't write off this team because you know what? Connor McDavid could have a 2-goal, 3-assist game. Leon Draisaitl could get a hat trick or score in overtime. I would bet on that happening because of those 2 players. but their depth has to show up. It hasn't been good in the last couple of games. Evander Kane has been a liability. Corey Perry is 40 years old and can't play 20 minutes every night. So I think those two guys find a way, and Game 7 will be incredible.
Which makes it even more agonizing if the Oilers were to lose back-to-back Game 7s, because then it's what are you changing? Yeah, but it's like, what are you changing? As we started this conversation is where we finish it. It's like, how do you tweak something when you're literally one win away in back-to-back? It's just, I can't.
And you could regress by tweaking too. It's a difficult situation because they're right there at the precipice. They have elite players. They have an excellent coach. But there is tweaking. Goaltending, a little better defense. Because there hasn't been any defense in the series.
No.
Like every game's gone over the 6.5 goal total. So there hasn't been any defense. So I think you tweak a little bit on defense and goaltending, and maybe that gets you a championship if you don't fall short for a second year in a row.
Dennis Bernstein, ladies and gentlemen, thefourthperiod.com, SiriusXM NHL Radio. I've appreciated you, my friend. Hopefully we do get a Game 7, because there is nothing better in all of sports, especially when we're talking about the Stanley Cup Final. Thank you, my friend.
It's always great with you, JP. Thanks for the time, buddy.
We're coming back with more Sports Wrap on this Tuesday. Don't go anywhere. Good to have you with us on this Tuesday edition of Sports Wrap. Shohei Ohtani makes his return to the mound. What did it look like? You'll see for yourself coming up in about 10 minutes. Also, some more thoughts on the Rafael Devers deal to San Francisco, from the San Francisco side of it mostly. But Sam Yarnell, it's that time of the year. Oh, that time of the year where the Yankee bats go quiet. They wind up firing a hitting coach or some assistant hitting coach, to shake things up. And they can't score a run for like 3 weeks. And that time of the year where Aaron Boone can't manage his way out of a paper bag. Because if Aaron Boone has to... Look, the Yankees are fine as long as it's not a one-run game, or Aaron Boone has to make any sort of important decision. Somebody threw out a stat today. Yankees are like 27-9 in games decided by more than one run because Aaron Boone doesn't have to make any decisions. But as soon as it gets to extra innings, as soon as it becomes a moment where Aaron Boone has to decide something important, Aaron Boone caves. Aaron Boone is awful. He is a terrible in-game manager. And how the Yankees continue to allow this to happen as an organization, how they keep giving him contract after contract, is beyond me. Last night, latest example, Yankees and Angels, 9th inning, Yankees, runner on second, nobody out. No, let's not bunt the runner over to third, because it's essentially the same thing as the 10th inning or the 11th inning when you start a runner at second base with nobody out. No, let's not bunt the runner over. No, let's just have people swinging away. Strikeouts, all this stuff. 10th inning, then we're going to bunt the runner over. Instead, we're going to try to bunt the runner over with DJ LeMay, who's great with the bat and can just easily, chop a ball over to the right side of the infield and get the runner over to third. Instead, we try having him bunt, who never bunts, hasn't bunted since he was like a rookie in the league playing for Colorado. Then it's just, I can't take it anymore. I can't take it with Aaron Boone. He's a terrible in-game manager. He costs the Yankees games every year. And in a division that apparently is going to wind up tighter than we all thought it was going to, because nobody in that division is running away with it, Aaron Boone's going to cost the Yankees games. He's got to go. He's got to go. I can't have any more Aaron Boone. I like him as a person. I've hung out with him before. I like Aaron Boone. But as a manager, nothing changes. It's like Groundhog Day with the Yankees, watching Aaron Boone manage games. Can't take it. Can't take it.
Losing streak. So here's the deal. The reason the Yankees have been horrible over the last week is because the other Aaron in New York actually proved that he was human. Listen, we have talked all year long about how this Yankees team, and they built it this way, and no fault of their own. The guy's been tremendous over the course of the last 3 years. But this Yankees team was built with kind of Aaron Judge offensively, Aaron Judge, and whatever else we can put around him. To the point about the managerial decision in the bottom of the ninth, Yeah, I guess you could have Jazz bunt there. You've got Jason Dominguez running absolutely. That may be like, I know it's Giancarlo Stanton on second and you have to run for him.
Yes.
But I guess Jason Dominguez running there, probably the worst managerial decision of the game, just because that's the reason they couldn't bunt, because Jason Dominguez is a horrible base runner and would run into an out as he did on the next play. So I can't fault them for not bunting when they don't have the talent on the bases to actually execute the play. But again, it just goes back to the Aaron Judge thing, right? You can't have Max Fried pitch every single game. And outside of Max Fried, the pitching staff has not looked good.
It
and
has. The pitching's fine. The pitching hasn't been the problem. The pitching is not the problem with this team. The problem with this team right now is they're not scoring runs. And in those situations when they're not scoring runs, Sam, you're going to wind up with tight 2-1, 3-2, 1-0 games like last night, and you cannot trust Aaron Boone to make the right decisions in those situations.
So again, it goes back to the point, right? Like if you take, even if statistically this was proven through the first 50 games of the season or whatever, if you took Aaron Judge out of that Yankees statistical analysis, right? They go from being a top 5 offensive team to being a bottom 15 offensive team in this bottom half of the league. So that's why it's so reliant. That's what happens when it's so reliant on one guy. And when that one guy who it's so reliant on literally spends a whole week striking out every other at bat statistically, you're not going to produce runs. When your best player, when the guy who your offense is built around hits 200, when a guy who's hitting 390 for the season hits 200 over the course of the week and his batting average drops 20 points, that's bound to happen. You're bound to not score runs. Yes, it's the fault of the Yankees, but I can't put it on Aaron Boone. If anything, I'll put it more on Brian Cashman for not building a roster around the one guy they had.
Well, the reason I can put it on Aaron Boone is there is a pattern. There's a pattern over the last several.
That is true.
There is a
That.
pattern over the last several years, frankly, over the tenure of Aaron Boone as the manager of this team.
Keep going back.
Of consistently making poor decisions. And it just never changes. It never gets better.
That is true.
Like, usually you learn from
right.
things. Usually most people learn from their mistakes in professional life. Aaron Boone does not learn. He goes back to the same things, the same tried and tested and failed things over and over and over again. And the Yankees let him get away with it. The organization lets him get away with it. And, you know, the Yankees still almost, and sometimes the Yankees figure out ways to win in these situations and take him off the hook. We're just talking about the ones where they actually wind up losing games because of it. Because sometimes he's making decisions that are not for the betterment of the team and wind up being for the negative, and they wind up bailing them out. And we don't talk about those. We're talking about this one because it sticks out from last night. Go ahead.
I think it brings up a very important question that honestly I don't think I could answer, but you as a Yankee fan could. Should the narrative around Aaron Boone be that he is an Aaron Judge merchant, that all of his success is built around one player who happens to be, you know, a top 20 hitter of all time?
It's a very good question. It's a very good question. He's been dining out on it for a while now. You know,
that's what I think the analysis comes down to. And if your answer is yes, right? If your answer is yes, then you're right, Jason. He's got to go, because then the team clearly isn't reaching its ceiling. And if they're not reaching their ceiling and they made it all the way to the World Series last year, what does that say about the organization?
And it's not going to be Brian Cashman that goes. I can promise you that. You know, I just wonder I still wonder what would it take? Like, what would it take for them to actually say, you know what, enough's enough? Like, I wish they had gotten destroyed last year and not made the playoffs or something like that, because then they'd have to get rid of them. We're coming back. All right, let's take it to segment 4 on this Tuesday Sports Wrap. Tomorrow, Kurt Heelan from somewhere. I guess Indianapolis at that point. Got our correspondents, our guys, Dennis in Florida, Kurt in Indianapolis, David Ardsmus somewhere in the Midwest. I don't know where. Hopefully he'll be with us on Thursday. We'll have to see. what his travel schedule is like. Sam, we were just talking about we were talking off the air about Brian Cashman, and I want to expand upon that. And we will in just a second, because we were talking about the moves that he's made, the good moves, the bad moves, and the in between. And I'll get to that in a second. But first, I want to talk about Shohei Ohtani, who made his return. And I'm sure you were glued to the television to watch the return of Ohtani. Were there like special betting lines on Ohtani last night? Was there anything special out there last night when it came to Ohtani's, one inning that he was gonna have for the Dodgers?
There were horrible lines out there.
Were there?
Yeah, of course, because
that he would grab his. Was there one that he would grab his elbow somewhere in the middle of that? in that? No.
Literally, no. But it was like crimes against sports betting. Looking at these lines last night, it was like Ohtani to record. You couldn't bet his unders, but you could bet Ohtani to record 1+ strikeout at -550. That a bunch of people used in parlays that never came through. I saw a bunch of people parlaying Ohtani to record 1 strikeout and 1 hit. Obviously, that didn't come through. Ohtani to pitch 2 innings. That didn't come through, I don't believe.
Suckers.
Yeah, so
Suckers, all of you. Suckers.
Yeah, exactly. The sports books were out there to steal money, and they seemingly did from a lot of people last night, Jason. Just unfortunate, man.
What did you see in watching Ohtani last night?
Oh my gosh. I mean, so many things, right?
Well, we could fit into this segment.
Right. The whole story. I mean, but you got to think around the whole story around it, right, man? Like any other pitcher, you'd see him go down on a rehab assignment, but you can't send your best hitter down to the minor leagues. What? So obviously he's just doing this rehab assignment thing against MLB hitters. That's freaking awesome. Yeah. He's throwing 100 off the mound in his first inning of work since Tommy John. That's freaking awesome. I mean, I can't say enough good things about the guy. And then he drives in 2 runs too. It's historic stuff. We are just lucky that we get to bear witness. It's like the early days of LeBron.
No, I agree with you. We are. And look, I have to take a little heat here. Because for as much as we talk about Aaron Judge on this show, and rightly so, because I'm a Yankee fan, and there is a slight Yankee bias on this show, in case you haven't noticed. And look, they're a team with a huge national following, but as are the Dodgers. We don't talk nearly enough about how great Shohei Ohtani is as a baseball player, and I'll take the blame for that since I often run the creative direction of the show. But that being said, there's something I want to point out, Sam. I'm watching him throw the baseball, and there might be subtle things, and this is why I want to have Ardsma back on. I want to get DA on to talk about this. Clearly, there's something in his mechanics that are causing him to have the elbow issues he's had. What is to say that have changes been made that are going to prevent that from happening again? Or is he just a ticking time bomb that in another, a year from now, we're talking about the same problem with Ohtani because of the mechanics of the way he throws the baseball? And that's something that bears watching.
I think I don't think that's an Ohtani question. That's a overall pitcher's question, right? Like we see Spencer Strider come back from Tommy John, right? And immediately go down with a leg injury because his body wasn't ready to go back to that motion or something, right? It's a commonality that we will see these guys change something or whatever the case may be to try and avoid re-injury. But then you also have, your 1 in a million circumstances of guys who get Tommy John and need it again, or get Tommy John and suffer, further consequences. Steven Strasburg never came back from Tommy
terrible.
John, right? With the thoracic outlet syndrome. Yeah.
Terrible.
It's going to be a very interesting thing to study over the course of the next years in baseball, Jason.
No, I don't disagree. A quick thought on Rafael Devers. We talked about this move from the Red Sox perspective. Yes. And I've read a lot in the last 24 hours about a lot of the inner workings of what's going on with the Red Sox. We may have a guest on this tomorrow, so I don't want to spoil it or tease somebody without 100% knowing they're coming on. That being said, we didn't talk about this enough from the Giants' perspective. And the reason I bring this back to Brian Cashman, You can get on the Yankees for a lot of things. You can't get on the Yankees for the fact that they don't try to better their team. Sometimes they do it to the negative by, bringing in a Joey Gallo, or we were talking about a Jacoby Ellsbury contract extension and things like that. The Giants have done, if that fan base is pissed off about what that team has done, then you're not paying attention. First of all, I love what Buster Posey does in going and getting, we talked about it from the Red Sox perspective, Sam, in, maybe they didn't get back enough. Man, this was a coup for the Giants to get this guy early prime of his career. You're going to have him for the next 5 or 6 years at peak Rafael Devers, hitting balls into McCovey Cove. We haven't said enough about the fact that the Giants did a terrific job bettering their team in this arms race against the Dodgers in the NL West.
Cannot give Buster Posey enough credit. You are exactly right, Jason. And I also think that as much as we talk about with the Red Sox ownership wanting to get rid of that contract, Buster Posey knew that he was in a spot where his ownership group has that sort of money that he can take on that underwater, as some people are calling it, contract. Great move, great GM.
Yeah, and that's what. And
so
look,
far,
they were willing to basically give that to Aaron Judge. So why not give it to Rafael Devers? It's a great move for that organization.
Great point. That's actually a great point.
We're coming back. We got more to do. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Sports Wrap. Odds and Ends wraps it up in 10 minutes. Big move and big news from the world of the PGA Tour coming off of the U.S. Open with J.J. Spawn, your winner at Oakmont, which we talked about yesterday on the show. News today on the week of the Travelers Championship that Jay Monahan is making it official, stepping down as the PGA Tour commissioner. And the new CEO, Ryan Rolap, is basically going to take over day-to-day operations of the tour. Jay Monahan, of course, look, he's a guy that's come under a lot of fire in recent years for the way he's run the tour. Basically after he basically succeeded Tim Fincham, 8 years ago, something like that. And Monahan came in. He tried to broker this deal with Live Golf that is yet to come to fruition. Now Brian Rolap will come in, and I assume he will take over the responsibility of trying to get that thing across the finish line. But Sam, it amazes me more in a world where we see coaching trees in the end. We often talk about coaching trees. We talk about it in the NBA. We talk about it in the NFL. Not so much in baseball, not so much in hockey, but we talk about coaching trees. Well, you talk about trees from the way leagues are run. And the NBA, David Stern was the commissioner of the NBA. Adam Silver took over for him. Didn't Gary Bettman come from the NBA? I can't remember if Bettman came from the NBA as well. But Bettman, there are coaching trees, just as there are trees to leagues and the way leagues are run. I am shocked that there aren't more leagues, startup leagues, new leagues that come into creation that don't try to turn to the NFL, that don't try to poach from the NFL. Look, say what you want about the NFL. You can't argue that it isn't a successful model for, making money, running a league, enriching owners, which is the ultimate goal, putting out, you could argue sometimes that the product drives you nuts with the NFL for different reasons, but people watch it in huge numbers. Now, I get some of that is because of the nature of what football means in America, and golf is just a completely different animal. But I say, if you're the world of golf, if you are the PGA Tour, it is a stroke of brilliance to bring in this guy, who most of us had probably never even heard of, to come in and run the tour, given his background being in TV deals, contract negotiations, and those sorts of things, which are areas where the PGA Tour is going to want to try and make some money in years ahead.
Yeah. It's just, to me, another layer in this wild onion of a golf story from the last 3.5 years at this point.
Feels like it.
To me, though, and I think to a lot of golf fans, Jay Monahan is one of the pillars of representation for the Live PGA split, the whole feud between the Live and the PGA. Now, I don't honestly remember because it was so long ago and so much in the world of golf has happened since then. But I feel like Jay Monahan was pretty adamantly against the two leagues coming back together. My wonder is whether or not this is kind of the PGA Tour saying, listen, we're getting that guy out of here. We're bringing in the new guy so that we can merge these two things back together and start making even more money than we thought before. Because that kind of seems like the end game still to me, although it's seemingly been a back burner to all of the golf world for the last 6 months. Yeah, that's how I read it, Jason. It just seemed like they wanted to bring in this new leadership who kind of understood, obviously, the biggest sports league in the world, but maybe have more open ideas towards bringing back all of the best players in the world and putting them on the same circuit to play against each other.
Look, Tiger Woods has come out and, given his blessing. The Pope of golf has come out on the balcony and given his blessing to this move. Rolap was key in the NFL broadcast and digital rights. He oversaw the NFL Network, NFL Films, all of these things, the media rights deals with ESPN and ABC, Amazon, CBS, Fox, NBC, Netflix, YouTube. I mean, if the PGA Tour could just get a sliver of that sort of success beyond its current structure, it's going to make tons of money. I also think the one thing you have to say about Monahan, and I'm not a big Jay Monahan fan either. And I think a lot of the reason Live Golf started was because there was a lot of discontent and a lot of golfers were looking for something else because of the way the PGA Tour was being run. I just think I think there was a lot of that discontent out there. And a lot of those guys were looking for another option. But that being said, and put that to the side for a second, he did go and get all that money from the strategic group, from that consortium of owners in Major League Baseball.
Boston, right?
Yeah. I mean, he went and got some money that basically allowed them to push back the fight from Live, because without that money, without that investment in the game of golf and in the PGA Tour, there were a lot of people that thought eventually Live Golf could wind up being the winner in this battle with the PGA Tour. But I think the PGA Tour is in a much better position today than it was yesterday with the news that Brian Rolap is taking over the day-to-day responsibilities of running the tour. And Jay Monahan will still be a part of it. He'll be part of the board or something like that, but obviously taking a back seat to what Rolap is doing. All right, we're coming back. Some odds and ends. Somehow the College Baseball World Series makes it back into the show. All right, just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Tuesday. Kurt Heelan on the show tomorrow. Maybe a baseball-related guest. You're gonna have to come and find out. All right, some reminders before we say goodbye. If you have not done so yet, make sure to subscribe to the Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast, available on all your favorite podcasting platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, and more. The show in audio form, commercial-free, all 45 glorious minutes of it. Monday through Friday, available on your favorite podcasting platforms. Wherever you get it, go and subscribe. Sports Wrap with Jason Page is available on over 220 affiliates around the country. TV, broadcast, cable, all of that good stuff, U.S. and Canada. It's also available to watch daily on Spotify and on our Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel. If you have not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Go and do it. It's free. It's 45 minutes, commercial-free, every day. You can watch the show on YouTube. Plus, we have YouTube Shorts, or I should say SportsWrap Shorts, that are available on our YouTube channel. We started putting those back up yesterday. We took about a week and a half off as I was traveling on the East Coast, but SportsWrap Shorts are back, so go and check that out as well. And without any further delay, ladies and gentlemen, time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends, Sam Yarnell, wax poetic about the College Baseball World Series as we had something, what was it, just the third time ever that we had a no-hitter in the College Baseball World Series yesterday? And it wasn't just a no-hitter. This was one of the most dominating efforts you'll see in any game anywhere, Sam.
Yeah, yes, that is the conversation that we will have in just a second, Jason.
Sure.
Gage Wood, shout out to the kid from Arkansas. No hitting Murray State, an absolutely potent offense. I saw people ranking it as like one of the top like 3 most potent offenses at Omaha. So yeah, Gage Wood absolutely mowing down hitters, 19 Ks, a hit by pitch in the 8th inning away from a perfecto. The third, like you said, in men's college World Series history, the first since 1960. Now, the greater conversation. Is this, and I'll ask you this, in an elimination game at the College World Series, throwing a 19 strikeout no-hitter with the only base runner allowed being by a hit by pitch in the 8th inning, is that the greatest, not the greatest, but where does that rank in terms of the best pitching performances the sport of baseball has ever seen? I think it's top 10, if not top 5.
Really? First in 65 years, by the way.
Yeah, since 1960.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
Yeah, I do think that this Gage Wood performance is one of...
How does he translate as a major league pitcher?
So that's an interesting question, and I think I'm very interested to find out in about a month here how that will all work out, because Omaha's a weird kind of place, right? You can see guys shoot their draft stock. Paul Skeens, the year that he was drafted, was not supposed to go number 1 overall heading into the SEC tournament shortly before, obviously, the national tournament. He was projected to go like number 3, number 5, and then he did what he did all the way through Omaha, all the way to a national championship, and earned himself the number 1 overall pick ahead of his teammate Dylan Cruz, who I believe at the time was the touted number 1 overall prospect. I don't know. I don't want to say that Gage Wood is like your next Paul Skeens, but the way that this Arkansas pitching staff is constructed, and with that singular performance on that stage in that moment, you've got to think the kid's draft stock went up at least 10 picks. He was already projected to be a first-round pick.
The numbers were pretty insane. I was just looking at some of the like crazy stats that came out of the game. Like 83 of 119 pitches were strikes. I mean, from every metric imaginable, this was an incredible performance. Congratulations to the young man, and we'll see what his future looks like someday in Major League Baseball. All right, one more thing to get to, because I crushed her for it, and deservedly so. Aryna Sabalenka apologizing for her comments following the French Open loss to Coco Gauff, calling her comments unprofessional, which is basically what I said when we had Patrick McEnroe on the show. Quote, "That was just completely unprofessional of me. I let my emotions get the better of me. I absolutely regret what I said back then. You know, we all make mistakes. I'm just a human being who's still learning in life. I think we all have those days when we lose control. But what I also want to say is that I wrote to Coco afterward, not immediately, but recently." So there you go from Aryna Sabalenka. And look, there's a reality that probably hit her in the face, like that metal plate she was holding getting smacked upside her head, and it was this. She's gonna have to face Coco Gauff for a long time, and the last thing you want is to provide extra motivation to somebody who's already extremely motivated, the way that Coco Gauff is. Smart move by Aryna Sabalenka, trying to nip this in the bud. But I'll say it again, that was a bad look for her, saying what she did after the French Open, Sam, because Coco Gauff deserved better after her performance in that match, but it is what it is.
I wonder how long people are going to remember the actions as opposed to the apology.
It's a good question. It's going to do it for us. Sam leaving you with those words of wisdom. We're going to put it on a coffee cup. Thanks to Dennis Bernstein. Thanks to you for watching. Thanks to you, Sam. We'll see you all back here on Wednesday. Stanley Cup recap and more then. Bye-bye.